One of the most horrifying and surprising evolutions we have witnessed among our widespread campus network is the rapid movement away from tolerating opposing ideas and respectful debate to the deployment of obscene bully tactics from the left. Charlie Kirk, 1993 to 2025. Rest in peace.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is normally the part of the program where I do the weekly news roundup, but I don't have a news roundup for you tonight because there is only one news story that matters this week. It may wind up being the most important news story of this decade. In fact, future historians may well record that the murder of Charlie Kirk on the campus of Utah Valley University on the afternoon of Wednesday, 10 September 2025, was the most consequential political assassination of a non-president in all of American history. I did a video about it on Thursday, and I've written about it at some length since then, and I don't really have much to say on the matter that wouldn't be a repetition of a thing I have already said or written, either on video or in print. So in addition to not having prepared a news roundup, I also haven't composed any sort of dedicated monologue to read for you right now, but I am going to read some excerpts from things that I've written in the past 2 or 3 days, which I haven't attempted to collate into any sort of coherent order, so it will probably sound more disjointed than the things I normally read on camera for public consumption, but it will probably, hopefully in some way, add up to a fitting snapshot of my thoughts as I have thought them over the last 48 to 72 hours. On the difference between the American left and the American right, I wrote the following. What's the difference between the left and the right? When an anonymous career criminal drug addict expires from an overdose while in police custody, the left spends half a year burning and looting the entire continent. The Democrat Party and the fake news media cheer them on all the way. When a prominent conservative commentator, a good and decent young man, gets publicly killed in broad daylight in front of his wife and kids, the right doesn't burn anything, doesn't loot anything, doesn't break anything, doesn't harm anyone. They hold prayer vigils. They express sympathies and condolences, and they collect the receipts on the vile, cretinous monsters who are celebrating the evil act. And the Democrat Party and the fake news media, right on cue, they bloviate about right-wing violence. Never have they done such a splendid job of showing us exactly who they are. On the all too predictable, but no less regrettable reactions of elected Democrats across the country, I said this: all the channels, all the outlets, all the hours of airtime, and the Democrats can't come up with one person who is willing to say something non-ghoulish. They can't come up with one person who is willing to say it's a terrible thing that happened and just leave it at that. They can't come up with one person who cares more about the human tragedy than they do about crafting a self-serving narrative and engaging in political ass covering. 3 days ago, the Democrats already looked like just about the worst people in the world, and they look much, much worse today. On Matthew Dowd, the vile, ghoulish creature who got fired from MSNBC correctly and still amazingly wants to portray himself as the real victim, and who said these words in his non-apology apology, quote, "I am getting over the shell shock of the past few days and will turn my gaze on adventures and the journey ahead," end quote. About that, I wrote the following: shell shock. This little slimy bastard actually uses a combat metaphor to describe his very well-deserved loss of employment for saying things that were so calumnious and so utterly indefensible that not even MSNBC, the mother of all fake news sludge factories, could justify keeping him on the payroll. This man should never have a job anywhere ever again. He shouldn't be hired to manage a Dairy Queen. He shouldn't be hired to shovel horse shit at the county fair. He should be ostracized from all sectors of society for the remainder of his days. On false moral equivalencies, of which we have had no shortage from all the usual suspects these past few days, I said this: we don't have a both sides problem. We don't have a turn down the temperature problem. We don't have a divisive rhetoric problem. We don't have a lack of unity problem. We have a problem with left-wing radicalization and left-wing violence. Their dumb fallacies and their dumb false equivalencies were already meaningless before, and they are even more meaningless now. We will no longer give serious rebuttal to any of that crap because it brooks no serious rebuttal. The problem exists on their side only. The onus is on them alone to acknowledge it and to rectify it. All we can do at this point as normal, decent people is to watch our six and keep our powder dry. On the shifting of the Overton window, I wrote the following: I have watched a lot of Charlie's Prove Me Wrong events on various college and university campuses, and I have always been struck by the crowds they attract. Not so much the jello-colored hair and the javelins in their faces and the god-awful tattoos, but the looks in their eyes and their physical mannerisms. Each and every time, I felt as if I was looking at people who were animated solely by hatred and malevolence. They always looked, and the girls more so than the boys, like if Charlie's security detail were to walk away, they would kill him with their bare hands immediately. They would tear him limb from limb and bathe in his blood. But 10 or 15 years ago, would any of Charlie's views have been regarded as extreme, or even noteworthy, or even particularly conservative? Would they have drawn crowds of pitchfork-wielding lunatics, screaming the most vicious abuse that can be imagined? Would they have drawn any crowds at all? Nah, probably not. 10 or 15 years ago, Charlie's views were simply the things that most normal people thought. We would all do well to think long and hard about how and why our centers of higher learning turned into industrial terrorism factories, and how and why it happened so quickly. On a related note, on the mechanisms whereby the places we used to call college campuses are now fully fledged terrorist madrasas, I said this: Charlie's alleged killer was, by all available accounts, a perfectly normal kid when he finished high school. Then he went off to college. And somehow, some way, 4 years later, he was an Antifa assassin. Does anyone actually believe there is no causal relationship there? It's well past time to stop tiptoeing around the fact that the places we used to call centers of higher learning are now terrorist factories. Each time the Chi-Coms give an eight-figure endowment to an American college or university, when they give $80 million to Harvard here and $60 million to Columbia there and $20 million to your local state college, whatever else it might be, what do you suppose they think they're purchasing? Because they ain't giving that money to warm the philanthropic cockles of their Chi-Com hearts, I can tell you that. And they sure as hell are not giving it to promote the teaching of national unity and traditional American values. That is for goddamn sure. They are buying social destabilization. They are rotting our society from the inside, and we have been happily letting them do it for the last 30 years. And boy, oh boy, have they got their money's worth. Imagine how hard the Chi-Coms would laugh at us if our government tried to pump their colleges full of money for the teaching of anti-communism. They would not allow us to spend a single red cent in that endeavor, no pun intended. But China is a serious country. We, regrettably, are not a serious country. On the words of the execrable, revolting NPR host Brittany Luce, who opened her show with a monologue all about how Charlie totally deserved it because he said words she doesn't like, I wrote the following. This is one big, long, mealy-mouthed justification for murder. It is vile. It is revolting. The cretin who said it should be fired immediately. Charlie was not an extreme conservative. He never said any bigoted things. Only a few years ago, none of his views would have been regarded as controversial or even noteworthy. 10 or 15 years ago, even 20, if you went to a college campus, set up a tent and a couple of speakers and said, I don't think men can magically turn themselves into women, would it have attracted a crowd of murderous savages who think you ought to be killed? Would it have attracted any crowd at all? The answers very likely are no and no. On the Secret Service agent who was placed on administrative leave for celebrating the assassination on social media, I said this. I wish I could say I have total trust in the Secret Service, but I can't. This guy isn't the only agent who thinks these horrendous things. He is just the only one who was stupid enough to say it in public. We do not need an Indira Gandhi incident in the United States, and that's what I can't help worrying about. That's what I can't help be fearing that we are hurtling toward. They failed to get Trump at an outdoor public gathering. The next escalation is to try and get him from the inside. If the entire Secret Service was stood down, I would not call it an overreaction. We already know that lots and lots of incompetent DEI hires were brought into the Secret Service during the Biden-Obama regime. And we would be badly deluding ourselves to believe this agent is the only one who thinks it is okay to assassinate conservatives. The whole agency should be stood down immediately, and the job transferred to the Marines or the Marshals or I don't know who until every potential inside assassin has been weeded out. Not to belabor the point, but we really, really don't need an Indira Gandhi incident. And that's what I fear is on the horizon. On all the people, idiots I believe they're called, who are shocked and outraged to have been fired from their jobs for cheering the fact that a young man got fatally shot in front of his wife and kids, I wrote the following. These people are such damned fools. They think they can say absolutely anything they want without any personal or professional consequences redounding upon them. They think free speech is a one-way street that only goes in their preferred direction. They think if they are cloistered in their woke safe space with other like-minded maniacs, they can say any vile, vicious, inhuman thing they want with total impunity. Each one of them deserves to be suddenly and totally disabused of that wildly mistaken notion. On leftist delusions of moral and intellectual superiority, I wrote the following. If you're confident in your ability to win the argument on a level playing field in an open marketplace of ideas, if you're confident that you are on the right side of history, if you're truly assured of the moral rectitude of your point of view, then you have no need to wish for the death of your interlocutor, nor any inclination to celebrate it when it happens. What's the difference between the right and the left? That is. And I'll close with this one, which is just about as positive and uplifting as I can get this week, on a little bit of inspiration that I took from Charlie's example yesterday morning. I posted a short video on YouTube a while ago, a clip from my Thursday video about how decent people ought to divest themselves from companies that advertise on MSNBC and CNN. And as often happens, some woke commenter immediately tried to jump down my throat, saying the sort of vile, hateful, irrational things that they always say. And before I wrote back what I was going to write back, I stopped myself. And I thought, what would Charlie do? And I know exactly what Charlie would have done. He would have attempted to engage the person with a respect they had not shown him, with a grace they had not shown him, and with a desire for understanding that they had not shown him. So that's the example I decided to follow. And me and the wokester wound up cordially wishing each other a pleasant weekend. Thanks, Charlie. You are our better angels. I'm done. That's just about all I've got for you. Thank you for indulging me with your kind attention. And here is the distinguished Mr. Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Allow me to start this particular episode with a couple of questions. Why is it that words are only violence to one side? Why is it that one side is expected to use only words and the other side promotes the use of violence? Why is it that common discussion in a public setting results in various people from the other side taking action when none is required? When people are speaking out in a manner and method that you do not agree with, you have only one question to ask. Is what they are saying true? Or what they portraying fact? If it is, you have no complaints. If it is not, then you should be able to bring out the truth to debunk their position. But that's not what I'm seeing. This morning, I got up. I've been sick for a couple of days. I felt really bad, and I got up and did some paneling to try to get my feet wet again. And I went about it as I usually do with most things like this, in a completely apolitical fashion. I have no dog in this fight as far as I'm concerned. I've never been a huge Charlie Kirk fan, but I appreciate and approve of his methods and methodology. He is was an absolutely amazing soul. His ability to sit and talk to absolute freaking retards without losing his shit was astounding. The patience of a saint. And I went to a panel where we were going over details. The roof, the person, the people, the crowd. Who was there, who wasn't there, what happened, what didn't happen, what's true, what's false, what can we rely on and what can't we? When in the chat shows up some vicious ghoul whose very first response was to take joy in the death of a man. His second response was to denigrate every single person on panel, to refer to us with slurs and derogatory terms. And this is, in his mind, supposed to be acceptable because he says, and this is what he said, it's what we do. What strikes me as strange, what strikes me as weird, what strikes me as completely untenable is that's a lie. And everything else that gentleman said was also a lie. It is the misinformation Google has been warning us about, that the State Department has been screaming about. It is exactly the narrative that we need to be careful about. Because once you have the capability of othering your political opposition, it is a bare few steps away from unpersoning them. And if they're not people, it's not a sin to go against them. I am not a violent man. I have no interest in violence. I have seen what it can do, and I do not like it. Even under the most charitable circumstances, violence is vile and repugnant. I don't have an answer for this one. I cannot sit here and allow people to smear a man whose only desire, and he was asked this, Charlie Kirk's, one of my favorite quotes from Charlie Kirk. Someone asked, what if you died tomorrow? What would you want to be remembered for? And he said, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, that I stood in strength of my faith. And I think at this point, we can say he did that very thing, and he did it with grace and humility and in the face of absolute degeneracy. This man was bigger than me. I'm a big fella. He was 6'5", 200 pounds, and probably could have took every single one of them soy swilling jokesters at any point in time, possibly 2 or 3 at a time. But it never became a thing. When they put hands on him, he would back away. When they came at him too hard, he would get cede ground and retake it verbally, which is a skill that I cannot but respect. I'm going to end on this. The truth is a lion. You need only set it free. What is up, Cap?
That was powerfully stated, my friend. Well done.
Thank you. Dude, we've seen this before. We've all seen this before. Something happens and the partisan yokels decide to use it for a political point, and everything gets split down the middle, and these people are those people, and this and that and the other thing. But this is the first time I have ever been attacked verbally twice in the same day by 2 different weirdo bots that I know, that I've talked to. I have discussed things with these people, and their response to me asking simple questions was to come in and attack me and the entire panel I was on.
And didn't you mention that they used almost the exact same words as each other?
Yeah, dude, it was eerie. And I know they're not the same person. It was eerie.
It is eerie. And as you were getting toward the end of what you were just saying, the thought occurred to me that even if the things they claim are true about Charlie, the false claims that he was a preacher of hatred and violence, even if those things were manifestly true, that still would not make it okay to celebrate a man getting murdered, especially not in front of his wife and kids. It would not be okay to celebrate parents no longer having a child, having a gravesite instead of a child. I'm in that club too. This day before yesterday was my 1-year anniversary. So now Charlie's parents and me and Lady Curmudgeon are going to be marking that most terrible of all anniversaries on the same week forever. And that even if the claims were true, which they are not, they are wildly false, that still would not make it in any way remotely okay to act like that over a person dying, no matter how reprehensible you think they or their political views happen to be.
Politics has no space for violence. Violence is not political. Violence is the last bastion. It is the final arbiter of decision making. That's why we relegate it to the state. That's why individuals are not encouraged to take on violence in and of their own opinions, is because you can't be trusted with it. It
is exactly why we denounce vigilantism.
Bingo. This is why lynching is illegal. Lynching, yes, by and large, and you hear a lot of stuff about racial lynching and whatnot, but that is not the most common form of lynching. The most common form of lynching is a case of a man murdering another man and a group finding him literally over the dying body of his victim and taking justice into their own hands. Due process is the distinction between lynching and justice. There is no justice in violence itself. The justice comes through courts. It comes through the retribution of the state. I hate to say it, but they are acting in part of ourselves.
Yes. And there are certain lines that societies need to draw if they wish to be regarded by other societies and indeed by history as being civilized societies of civilized people. And one of those lines is people must not be harmed for the words they say. Even if the words truly are false and reprehensible, we have legal mechanisms for dealing with that. That's why we let the law handle such things, because otherwise we are just savages.
So this adds one more layer to the questions that I have. I have so many questions, and merely asking them is triggering vitriolic and, quite frankly, degenerate responses. I mean, I wasn't sitting there trying to propagate a narrative to these people. I was asking simple questions. Why didn't he have an exit strategy? Why would he use that particular type of gun? Why carve stuff on the bullets? Was that the actual gun? Is this the actual person? Was the guy in the crowd involved? That kind of stuff. Nothing political, nothing about it.
The sort of questions you always ask immediately after somebody was assassinated with a rifle, right?
Dude, you'd ask the same questions if the man was standing in a 7-Eleven.
Sure, absolutely.
So there's nothing unusual about the questions being asked. The response is what is unusual. And the reason the response occurs is because this individual, who, to my knowledge, has never held a political office, has never been in a political appointment, was firmly on the side of God and Jesus, and not any particular party. Although, of course, his religious standing lands him in line with the Conservative Party more than any other.
Which is also a fairly recent development.
Right. So, I mean, trying to say that he was this right-wing radical, that's really weird to me. I mean, he was one of the more moderate, the most moderate speakers that, and this is why he was able to go on campuses. Steven Crowder's can't go on campuses anymore. They straight just
God, no.
on rail.
No. Yeah.
Right.
I don't think I think I heard Ben Shapiro say it yesterday or day before yesterday, and he is well positioned to make this judgment that he thinks this is probably the end of outdoor public political events for a good long time. And regrettably, I think he's probably not wrong.
I kind of hope not. But the quote that I did at the beginning was suggested by you. The quote that I did in my segment was something that just I remember seeing. It's one of the very few clips of like actual videos of Charlie Kirk that I watched was an interview with some rando guy who was obviously a chick who was trying to obviously kind of catch him slipping or asking kind of, slightly suggestive questions, trying to catch him on the edge or something. And it didn't work because he was a real person. He was exactly what he appeared to be. He did exactly the things that he believed people should do. And he expected other people to treat him with the same respect that he treated them. And they gave him a bullet.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that's a feature, a very rare quality in prominent political figures that Charlie shared with Donald Trump, in the fact that they both are or were exactly who they appear to be. There is not a scrap of artifice in either man, and I think people on the left find that uniquely threatening. That a man is actually really genuine, because I think artifice is a part of their default condition. Artifice, in many ways, is the oxygen they breathe on the left. They know that the narratives they propagate aren't necessarily related, even tangentially, to what's actually true, but you still promote the narrative because the narrative benefits you politically. You still shift the blame because shifting the blame benefits you politically. They can't wrap their minds around the idea that a man might actually go out in public and say what he really means without having any agenda.
Well, I mean, clearly Charlie did have,
except perhaps to make people think more deeply about things.
But he did have an agenda. The part they can't wrap their head around is that his agenda wasn't exactly what he said it was. That he wasn't completely honest at the outset, that he believes family and the moral structure and the I mean, call it whatever you want, but American values, the based aspects of this country, were superior to the new wave of new thought that has just completely devastated our institutions, both
Absolutely.
legal, our colleges, our universities. You can't, in some states, in some cities, you can't get a job in some places without having a political discussion with the person hiring you.
Yes, without being made to pass a decidedly leftist political litmus test, and that is largely what our university campuses have become as well. Is it possible to go to an American university for 4 years in the third decade of the 21st century and just be apolitical and not care? I don't think it is.
Maybe.
You will be made to jump through hoops and pretend that you are down for the omni cause, whether or not you really are. And I think a lot of people pretend to be just because they're trying to go along to get along, and maybe they're intimidated and scared of violence, and perhaps they ought to be. But it's getting more and more difficult for young people to not give a shit about politics because they are actively dragged into this nonsense, whether they like it or not. And I imagine many of them are dragged in without even realizing they're being dragged in. Perhaps they're getting dragged in just because they want to have a peer group, and their peer group happens to be raging, foaming at the mouth communist, maniacs.
Do your grifting thing. You got a donation.
Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. What kind of song and dance should I do?
I don't know. We haven't had a whole lot of those, so I haven't really put together a whole bunch, but we do have this.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Yeah, I wish I was feeling pithier this evening, or I would tell a funny joke or do something.
Oh, I got a horrible one. I got a bad joke. Are you sure? It's going to piss you off. It pisses me off just thinking about it.
Just do it. You already mentioned it.
Fuck it. Okay. In the end, even Charlie leaned left.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Oh my God, I'm going to wash my mouth out here. You hold this for a second.
God, he leaves me with that. How about let's take a moment to touch, as I briefly did during my opening monologue, on how disconnected from reality people are who are getting fired from their jobs right now for celebrating a man's public murder in broad daylight. I'm especially reminded of, I'm sure many of you watching right now have seen the Office Depot clip, which I believe was, I want to say Kalamazoo, Michigan, somewhere in Michigan, where people placed an order, paid for it ahead of time. It was just black and white pictures of Charlie Kirk on a flyer that were intended to be used at a prayer vigil. And they go in to pick up the order, and the smug, self-satisfied manager says, "No, we don't print propaganda." And she was so happy with herself, and the other two employees standing with her were going, "Yeah, you go, girl, you get 'em." And propaganda. I'm guessing, this is just a guess, I'm guessing if it was, let's say, Rachel Maddow or Ilhan Omar who had died, you wouldn't refuse to print the flyer on the grounds of it being propaganda. And the customer asked, of course, quite reasonably, "What is it that makes it propaganda?" And she goes, "Well, he was a political figure, so that makes it propaganda, and I don't have to print it." And naturally, all three of them were swiftly fired, and Office Depot had a hell of a PR incident on their hands. And I would be willing to bet all three of those smug little wokesters are on their social media accounts right now claiming to be victims of just like Matthew Dowd is claiming to be a victim. He thinks the right-wing media mob got him fired from MSNBC, and not the dastardly words that he spoke. The man who said, "Well, I don't know, maybe it was his supporters firing off their guns in celebration." Because American conservatives are like Mexican banditos in a B Western who just fire guns in the air. And like, dude, do you ever think about the words that are actually coming out of your face hole? And you're surprised you think you are so important that there's a right-wing media mob that needs to coalesce around getting you fired? No, you got fired because even MSNBC, the sludge factory with the lowest standards of any sludge factory in the entire world, couldn't justify keeping you on the payroll after you said what you said. And that's why you got fired. So you need to get over it. You are not the victim here. There is no one to blame except your stupid self.
All right, before we go into this video, I want to take.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I got you. There's a term that's been running around the internet for the past few weeks, about 2 months now, I think. Fatigue. The idea that people are being fatigued. And there's a whole bunch of racialism being tossed in on top of this, saying that, oh, it's black fatigue, it's Mexican fatigue, it's this fatigue, it's that fatigue. No. First of all, they're full of shit. That's a lie. It is none of that. It is victimhood fatigue. Every single soul that is in a real job doing real work is so tired of these victims walking in with their victimhood narrative and their victimhood points and trying to make everyone else the oppressor when no one's being oppressed. Everyone has to work and you don't get a free pass. So pull your freaking panties up and be a big boy about it.
Yes, it's
You're not a
victimhood and the sense of entitlement that accompanies it.
Yes, and it's entitlement. That is a huge portion of this. And this is that same thing on the opposite side. This is not someone who comes in and you didn't fill her cup enough, and so she feels victimized and is going to put you on blast on social media. This is someone coming in asking for perfectly reasonable services, and someone's political interest interfering with them doing their job. These individuals are already activists, but are executing their will in representation of what is this? Office Depot? Mm-hmm. They represent Office Depot, and they are representing them. If you go and look at your contract and your contract and your contract and your contract, if you go look at the contract you work under, in almost every single case, it makes the statement that you are a representative of your employees, whether private or public. If you make statements that denigrate the employee's standards, you will be removed. It's right there in the fine print.
And your First Amendment rights do not entitle you to say things that reflect badly upon your employer. That is not how any of this works, young lady.
The First Amendment protects you from government action.
Yes, exactly.
And that's it.
Ding, 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 ding. Winner.
So, the First Amendment exists for unpopular speech. Most speech that is illegal that you want to be illegal is already illegal. You just want to hang an extra veneer of illegality on it by calling it a hate crime.
Yes.
In reality, the motivation of a crime
dog whistle to violence.
Right. But in reality, the motivation of a crime is independent, is irrelevant. It has no bearing on the crime itself. The crime is a crime. You don't need additional charges for a crime to be a crime.
Yeah, like I said, we have legal mechanisms to deal with such things.
So let's roll this. I'm gonna roll it all the way through. It's only in 2 minutes. So
yeah.
We came in for an order earlier to print a poster for a vigil tonight.
Yeah, so
for somebody that passed. It's not.
It's propaganda. I'm sorry. We don't fit that here.
Alrighty. So, what's your name?
Carol, I'm print supervisor.
I'm one of the managers.
Yes.
So, unfortunately,
so if they say they don't print political propaganda, so this is somebody that passed away a couple years ago.
That's political propaganda, unfortunately. I'm
so
sorry.
This is for a prayer tonight, for a prayer vigil?
Mm-hmm. It's still propaganda, unfortunately.
What makes it propaganda?
Oh my God.
Because
oh my God. Oh my God. I know y'all can't see it, but this fucking bitch in the back.
Oh God, I know. Oh God, I know. She is the smug queen. She looks like that. She looks like the chick from the god awful Star Wars show. I know I need to be more specific than that, but I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah, no, man, you're gonna have to give me a little bit more. Riri Williams?
No,
that's yeah. Fucking
no,
shit.
It wasn't the Acolyte, but it was the other god awful one.
Ahsoka? No. There was another one. There was some other terrible shit.
Amandla Stenberg, I think is her name. Which show was she? I'll look it up.
Look it up, and I'll let this play. But I don't hate easily. It takes a lot to get me to hate.
Propaganda, unfortunately.
What makes it propaganda?
Because he's a political figure, and I don't have to.
Our general manager is going to be in on Monday. If you
No,
want to
it's
speak
totally
further on the
we have-
subject,
we have
If you would like
boss-
to,
we have
you're
boss-
welcome to return.
Oh, it was The Acolyte. I was right.
Oh God, it's such a horrible show. I've
Oh, I
seen a
know.
lot of
It's
bad crap in my life, but that's one of all right. You know me, I will sit through some absolute slop just to be able to scream about it on the show come Sunday, right?
oh,
I will watch.
you sat through that whole War of the Worlds movie. I have no idea how you did that.
It took 3 tries, and I had to regroup my brain around the idea that, and I didn't know this at the time, but I decided in the middle of watching that movie, after I got up, went and cooked me a steak and came back and sat down with it and looked at my wife and was like, "You don't have to sit here for this." And she got up and left and went to go play a video game. And I sat down and I hit play. And in the first 10 seconds of the second half of that movie, it occurred to me, this is straight out of 2020. This has to have been filmed at 2020. And it turns out I think it was filmed in 2022, maybe.
Yeah, and then it sat on the shelf for several years.
Right, because they knew that shit wouldn't fly.
And you could synopsize the entire movie in one sentence by just saying Ice Cube makes funny faces at camera. There's your synopsis.
Well, yes. It was as much War of the Worlds.
Plus lots of Amazon product placement.
It was as much War of the Worlds as Day After Tomorrow, which is about climate change.
Oh God, I remember that movie.
In fact,
Dennis Quaid, Jake Gyllenhaal, right? Yeah.
Loved that movie. It was good. I liked it. It's dumb, but I mean, it was good. And
It was not. I mean, I've seen more terrible things. It was good, dumb action movie fun. Didn't Roland Emmerich direct that?
I think so.
I'll look it up.
It was one of those guys. You're close. If it's not him, it's real close. It looks just like his work.
God, that movie's 20 years old already.
Yeah, I know. And but to get back on the point, it's not propaganda. There is no possible way. I promise you, that Office Depot has printed thousands of vigil flyers, millions probably, for all kinds of people in all walks of life, old, young, left, right. None of those questions were ever asked until the individuals responsible for printing it knew who the person was and disapproved of their politics and made the arbitrary decision that this is propaganda to hold a prayer vigil, propaganda to hold a service for an individual who died, regardless of who they are. That's retarded.
And those were the very first words out of her mouth. She didn't open with, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to fill your order." She went straight to, "It's propaganda." As if that's just supposed to suffice and the customer is just supposed to turn around and walk away.
Okay.
What goes on in your head, my girl?
Let me concede a point. Just I know it's not true, but let's concede one. It is propaganda. All right. What's the messaging?
Yeah, what does it matter?
No, if it's propaganda, the message matters. Without the message, it's not propaganda. If it's propaganda, tell me what the messaging is, and we can discuss whether or not it's propaganda. But by just stating it's propaganda with no statement to back that up, that is
the female companion of the customer did attempt to ask that question and didn't get really any sort of satisfactory response. What makes it propaganda? Well, it's just propaganda, so fuck off.
That's like saying a woman is a person who identifies as a woman. You cannot use the word to identify itself. You cannot define a word using the word to define itself. That's just language 101.
You would think fancy university students would know what a tautology is.
I've never had any of that fancy learning painting, and I figured out what a tautology is on YouTube. I didn't know before. Honest to God, it never occurred to me.
I done find out what that word means. All I had to do was crack open this dictionary.
Well, I mean, I read a dictionary. I just kind of skimmed over the boring parts. Tautology was apparently one of them. It kind of seems like it goes without saying that you can't use the thing to define the thing. Like,
yes, that's not how any of this works.
Why is it scary? Because it's scary. Okay. All
A
right.
cat is an animal that looks like a cat.
Yeah, there you go. And God, we need Diogenes. Where's Diogenes when we need him? Right? Do you know what Diogenes would do to these people? He'd literally piss on them. He would sneak
know.
up on them and pee on them. The rooftop, if that would have been Diogenes on the rooftop, he would have peed on Charlie Kirk instead of shooting him.
The ancient Greeks would despair at what has become of our rhetorical skills. That is for goddamn sure.
They would revolt. They would absolutely bloodshed in the streets, bro. Now the Romans might be able to get down with it a little bit, but they're not the Greeks. Like, can you imagine Socrates coming over here playing some of these silly buggers?
Oh, he would have so many people to slap.
Dude, or who was it? Socrates that once won a debate by flexing?
Must have been.
I think so. Who was
Socrates
that?
and the 24-inch pythons.
Yeah, right. Well, he was an absolute unit. Anyway. Okay, let's change gears a little bit. Let's back up. Let's look at this. Let's try to take off our rose-colored glasses for a moment, if you don't mind. Let's take exactly the same script. Let's take exactly the same plot twist. Let's take exactly the same situation and flip it on its ear. I'm really good at this. I didn't know that, but we've learned. Hassan Piker does a rare public. Just do it. Come on, take you a Dramamine, get you a good breath in, hold it.
I didn't mean to interrupt what you were going to say, but we need to pull up his interview with Ilhan Omar if you want to be disgusted and lose your dinner. Have you seen that one?
All right, we'll do that in a bit. I haven't seen it, but I can fucking imagine. Maybe
I'll
I
find
can
it and stick it in the bin.
Oh, stick it in the bin, baby. Stick it in the bin. Let's flip this on its ear. Let's look at it from the other perspective. Hassan Piker does a rare public speaking event. He sits and does an exactly equivalent job at quibbling over details between right and left as Charlie Cook would. He does all the things, and some red hat wearing, tobacco chewing, cigar smoking, patriarchy supporting, MAGA maggot climbs on a rooftop, drops him at 200 yards. And some random other MAGA maggot in the crowd jumps up and says, "I did it. It was me. Somebody shoot me." And this guy runs away. What does the crowd do? What happens? What's different?
There wouldn't be any cheering. There wouldn't be any whooping and hollering and cheering.
I mean, there might be. There are some sick people on the right as well. And I'm sure they would make their voices heard, even though they probably shouldn't. I'm sure they would. There are some sick, twisted people all around. Some crazy person does the thing, and it's to a renowned left-wing pundit. I don't have a good example, because if Destiny took one currently, nobody'd bat an eye. I mean, he's pretty much mud at this point. Vosh is a joke, has been a joke for the last 3 years. So actually, he's definitely been a joke since who was it? Was it Tim Pool that got a hold to him, or was it
I believe so, yes.
I think it was Tim Pool, but I think Sargon of Akkad also got a piece of that guy, didn't he? A couple of years ago.
Yep.
That's what started the downward spiral of Vosh, was enough people realizing exactly who he was and what he was saying that it became a bad thing. But that's neither here nor there. Vosh would probably be a better example. Let's use Vosh instead of Hassan. Vosh goes and has a speaking engagement outside, which, as to my knowledge, has never happened. I've never seen him do a speaking engagement outside. And all other details.
Much less take open questions.
Right? Oh, no. And everything else follows in course, right?
Yep.
Do the crowd that was there, do they move to apprehend the gunman? Do they do the things that need doing? Or do they just rip the guy that said he did it apart and then go looking for the guy who actually did it?
They would react the way civilized people should react, by and large. More of them than otherwise.
So,
which is, I think the natural reaction when you are in a shooting is either to duck or flee. First of all, that's what most of the reactions would be. If there was a gunman who was still a danger, there would be people who would try to apprehend him and contain the danger and subdue the threat.
You would assume, right?
Yeah,
You're talking
I mean,
about
you would hope, but we seem to see less and less of that, regrettably.
you're talking about a famous left-wing speaker, and the large portion of their crowd would be more left-wing than right, which in Charlie's case is a byproduct of being on campus. But
yeah,
in
I think
case,
that would be a necessary truth of being on any college campus in the
but in
current
the
day.
case of Bosch, you could expect another third in the size of the crowd, and every single person in that additional third would have been left wing. And that's at least, right? And you can't expect that third of people to come that are also additional left wing to all be perfectly sane and rational Americans.
And how sizable would the crowd even be to begin with? Because I don't think college kids are all that interested in showing up to see speakers they agree with. I think they're far more interested in showing up to see speakers they can hurl abuse at because they think they're terrible hate-mongering ghouls.
Yeah. Okay, you got a point there. There's one hole in my narrative, but I don't think it plays out exactly the same. I think the guy with the all right, so in Charlie's case, we had a man stand up saying that he did it, shoot me, that guy. It was me. I'm the one who did it. And
that was weird. That was really weird.
We'll get to that in a minute. That's for the last 30 minutes. I'm gonna dig in on some of that because you know how my brain works, and it
Yep.
I got questions, bro, and ain't nobody got no answers.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah, I bet that made your spidey sense tingle.
Dude, in my butthole, it made my spidey sense tingle. So a guy pops up out of the crowd. He pops on a bright red MAGA hat and screams, "I did it. I'm the one." I say he doesn't get a second sentence out of his mouth before he gets jumped. Vosh is dead, laying on the ground. And in the end, he leaned right.
And in the end, he leaned right.
So do you see that man walking out of that group alive and intact?
I think that would have to be a function of who was nearest to him. I think it could go either way, really.
Yeah, it could go either way. I'll accept that. But it is a non-zero possibility that he literally gets torn limb from limb.
Absolutely. It sure is.
There is. Okay. All right.
Which is the same thing that would have happened to Charlie, like I said in the monologue, if at some point his security detail had abandoned him during any one of these college campus appearances. The crowd would have ripped him limb from limb and bathed in his blood.
Yep. It would have been no, I'm not going to say that. It's possible to go too hard. Words ain't violence, but sometimes they are criminal.
Yes.
So an individual pops a shot wearing bright red because, I mean, no real self-respect and maggot would be running around in black bloc. You know it and I know it. And so he's easily identified, and the same crowd who just ripped a man to shreds in the forum, is also the same crowd that is running away from a mysterious gunman no one really knows where is. And you come up with this random terrified group of people, and animals are flighty, crazy, stupid beings. Humans are animals.
Indeed.
When they're panicked,
More so than others.
when they are panicked, they are very, very easily set off to violence. And if they came around,
we turn into feral creatures pretty quickly if you
Really
put
quick.
the right set of circumstances around us.
When they come around the corner, they see this guy landing on the ground, hurting his ankle and limping away, carrying a bag and what appears to be a firearm. I just don't see them letting him run away.
Yeah, perhaps not.
Possibility. We're back to a non-zero possibility.
Non-zero possibility.
I may be wrong. I might be completely misreading the situation. I don't think so.
I wanted to mention also, since you brought up the subject of, the casual equating of words with violence, as we quite often see from the left and far too often. But I wanted to mention an exchange that I got into yesterday with some jackass who replied to one of my comments just with the usual vitriolic spiel about how Charlie was a white supremacist and advocated violence, and his platform was all about bigotry. And so I simply said, because I like to fancy myself a reasonable person, can you point me to this supposed bigotry that you saw coming from Mr. Kirk? And he gives me a whole big long list of quotes that I'm sure he got from somewhere else. And it was all quotes of just Charlie criticizing diversity hiring and saying, like you remember when the airline said they were going to have diversity hiring with their pilots, and it was Charlie saying things like, I would like to be able to go onto a plane and see a black pilot and not worry if he was actually qualified for the job. There was nothing racist or bigoted about that. It's a perfectly reasonable thing for a person to think after an airline announces a policy like that. And it was 8 or 9 different examples of things like that he wanted me to concede that was all bigotry and white supremacy, when I feel like people have a very dim understanding of what bigotry actually is, because there was never any sort of comparative value judgment about the value of one race to another or the superiority of one race to another. It was about hiring people on merit or not hiring people on merit, and you just can't get through to some of these people. They think criticizing any policy that they advocate and support is automatically racism, and that's one of the exact same things that Ilhan Omar did in this interview with, and it wasn't Hassan Piker, it was actually Mehdi Hassan. So I guess in confusing one Hassan with another, I am probably guilty of Islamophobia, and that's fine. But she did the same thing. She said, well, he was against Juneteenth being a national holiday, therefore he's a white supremacist. And I mean, really? You actually were able to get from point A to point B on that, and you just said that in public with a straight face as a sitting member of Congress. That is just completely baffling to me that a person could think that way. Any person. I don't care what party you're in. Any person.
Let's flip it and look at it upside down. Let's say, hypothetically, you have the choice with interacting with an honest racist and a lying politician. Which one do you think you can trust more? The one who looks you straight in the face, says, I'm racist and I hate these people over here for whatever reason. They've got their reason. They tell you their reason. Of course it's bullshit. But
and I know we're not supposed to say things like this, but let's say it anyway. Young people have had implanted in their heads the very strange concept that says a racist is the absolute worst kind of person you can be. And that just isn't true. There are way the hell worse kinds of person you can be than a racist. Having regrettable thoughts about race in your head doesn't mean you're actually mistreating any human beings. It is the exact same fallacy whereby you get from two words being violence when they are not.
Right. These are the mental gymnastics of a mental midget. Can you hit the little get biggie on the screen on the thing down there? The full screen button. Oops. No, I mean
yeah, I got
the little square at the bottom. Yeah, there you go. All right. We don't know. We don't want your suggested, sir. All right. So this is Mehdi Hassan Ilhan Omar, and they are discussing what specifically?
How awful Charlie Kirk was.
Great. This will be fun. Do the thing.
I will do the thing presently. Doing the thing now.
Is that, you know, Charlie was someone who once said, you know, guns save lives after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
Right, have no regard,
St.
downplay
George!
slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country by saying Juneteenth should never exist.
There it is.
And I think, you know, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, you know, like than to completely pretend that, you know, his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade or so.
Now, I rate that as worse than stupid and worse than misguided. That is just downright ghoulish. To suggest that a person hates Black people because they don't think Juneteenth should be a national holiday. He doesn't say why it should be a national holiday. We know exactly why it's a national holiday. It's a national holiday because race hucksters wanted to make it a national holiday so that they could then call people racist who opposed it being a national holiday. It does not it does not commemorate an anniversary that is nationally relevant. Nobody outside of South Texas had heard of Juneteenth until 5 minutes ago. And that's why it shouldn't be a national holiday, because it is a regional thing. That's the only reason. It has nothing to do with comparative value judgments about the Black and white races. So shut up, you awful, awful, awful person.
So this might strike you as a bit odd, but I don't have a particular issue with Juneteenth. I have a particular issue with what it's used for. If they want a date commemorating the final act of the final days of slavery, I don't have a particular issue with it. I do have an issue with the baton they use it as that they use it as to beat people with.
Yes, and they created it solely to be a racial cudgel with which to beat their enemies over the head. And that's exactly what we've just seen her do.
All right, hit play and let the music play out. I've got it muted. I don't know if you can unmute it from that end, but you can try. Representative Ilhan Omar, I missed it. Oh, yeah, okay. And now the rest of it's just copyrighted music. That makes sense. A real good way to catch you some views. Came during an interview with former MSNBC host Mehdi Hasan, which is not Hassan Piker at all.
Yes, that was my Islamophobic conflation.
Oops. I mean, I get it. I actually had an entire conversation earlier saying Mehdi Hasan instead of Hassan Piker, and it was just a mental brain fart. It had nothing to do with what I was saying.
They all look the same anyway, right?
Jesus, dude. Like, kind of. I'm a terrible person, but it's all right. I'm honest about it.
All right, how long does this go on, guys?
Yep.
There's only so much of this damn music I can take. Oh, Rita Panahi, she's awesome. Let's listen to her.
We can listen to her. See if you can unmute it yourself. I'm just curious. No? Okay.
Utter depravity that has followed the murder of Charlie Kirk, a thoroughly decent, principled man brutally murdered today, and the soulless fools of the left were quick to celebrate.
There are a lot of people that are like, no matter what side of politics you're on, you should never celebrate something bad happening to someone. I, on the other hand, do cheer when bad things happen to bad people.
Charlie Kirk just got shot.
Well, breaking
News, folks. Seems somebody just took a shot at one of the Fantafast's favorite 5-mile wide mouthpieces, Charles Chuckle Kirk.
And sadly, the vile left has not been shy about showcasing their ugliness, their utter callous depravity. This is what leftism does to your mind and soul.
Charlie Kirk got shot and killed. How do you feel?
Happy. Goodbye.
Wow. Did you see that Charlie Kirk just got shot and killed?
That's good.
Wow. That's good. That's good that people are getting shot just off a political view.
Charlie Kirk gets shot and killed today. We're just getting people's opinions. How do you feel about that?
Girl, someone had to do it. And that's how I feel at this point in time. But
And only the last girl actually stopped to think about it for a moment before she said the awful, evil thing she was going to say. The other ones, it was just totally instantaneous, right off the bat, with a smile on their face. Yep, I'm glad he's dead.
And I want to bring up American 101's comment again, if you will.
Yeah, please do.
It's Sir, you get a participation trophy. Thank you for playing. You may take your round around the bases. You get a free point, and there will be a snack at the snack bar and concessions. So make sure you take it up with them, not me. That's care of Mandatory Carry. You can find him on YouTube. Give him all your complaints as well. He's also my complaint department. So there's that. That was excellent. That's a really good line. Juneteenth is a guilt-tripping power play. It's exactly what it is. But I say let them have it because it exposes all of the ingrates. They're right there out front. You can see what they're doing, and you don't have to worry about where they're actioning. So, you know. And this last girl, she didn't stop to think about what she said because she wanted to say something. She stopped to think about what she said because she didn't want to get fired. She didn't want to say something that would get smoked from the internet.
She was thinking, how can I say this so that it gets me in the least amount of trouble?
Right. So, if you believe they think that far, but ghouls.
Did I keep rolling this, or did you have another thing you wanted to do?
Roll it.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty. I truly do. So you said someone had to do it.
yes. Try not to get all pulled up into that, but he was a misogynist. He was a disgusting person with disgusting beliefs.
Enough of that trash. Let's look at how the media professionals covered this tragic event, this act of domestic terrorism. Here is MSNBC.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Here comes our guy. Here comes
and
Matthew
again, to
Dowd.
emphasize what you just emphasized, we don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea.
Yeah, pretty sure we knew immediately it wasn't that. Charlie Kirk supporters don't go around shooting their guns in celebration like they're attending some wedding in Iraq. And of course, MSNBC had to engage in victim blaming by calling Charlie divisive.
Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices on.
Divisive, polarizing, lightning rod. Terms that are only ever used by the left to describe conservatives.
Exactly. Those are
daily podcast.
Go ahead.
Those are specific terms used because of their emotional weight they carry in the American use of our language. Specifically used to divide and polarize their audience.
Exactly, which is the biggest irony of all.
But that was just stupid. What I'm about to play you is straight out depraved, disgusting commentary. This is Matthew Dowd again on MSNBC. It's not long after Charlie was shot.
He's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's
and that is the clip that got his ass fired, and rightfully so. And he thinks he's the victim. He thinks he's been terribly mistreated by someone he calls the right-wing media mob.
I got a question.
Okay.
I'm still curious. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago when what's that dude's name? Pac-Man was talking about how the right wing has completely cornered the alt media market, and that the left wing really needs to get in on this, because if they don't, they're going to fall behind farther than they've already fallen behind. The reason the right wing had to do that was because they were completely removed from the mainstream narrative as a valuable speaking piece. Without
you
that
think
impetus,
they haven't even figured out that there's a cause and effect relationship here. Like, that was the only recourse, and that's why that happened. So, duh.
and it's not money.
No,
That's
it absolutely
the
is
difference.
not.
Yes, you can pay people to say things, but they will not say it with the faith and conviction of a believer.
And paying people to say things, again, it is a project that exists almost exclusively on the left. When was the last time you heard about conservative influencers being paid to read out Republican Party talking points? You haven't, because it never happens. But you hear that all the time about Democrat-affiliated organizations, paying all the, what was the figure, $8,000 a month they're paying some TikTok influencers to read from the Democrat Party script, which I totally believe, because they're stupid. Because they don't know how to interact with real people, so they say, well, this person on this website has a lot of followers, so let's just make them read our script, and then that'll work, and that'll be just as good. Obviously, it's not, but they keep trying it, and who knows what unconscionable amounts of money they have dumped into that effort that is just ultimately going to fail spectacularly.
And it's going to fail because the mouthpieces are already broken.
Yes.
They do not believe their speech. They lack the courage of their convictions, sir.
And because the things you are giving them to say are stupid, indefensible things.
Exactly.
The unfortunate environment.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right.
Environment we're in.
That was so vile, so hateful, and frankly deranged and dangerous that even MSNBC had to take some action, and they've sacked Matthew Dowd, but it's MSNBC. He may be back before the end of the month. And the asinine commentary wasn't restricted to commentators on MSNBC. Governors joined in. Here is the rotund governor of prime-riddled Illinois, blaming President Trump, the man Charlie Kirk worked tirelessly to re-elect. Governor Pritzker blames Donald Trump for fomenting political violence.
Political violence, unfortunately, has been ratcheting up in this country. We saw the shootings, the killings in Minnesota. We've seen other political violence occur in other states. And I would just say it's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it.
Did that nincompoop really mention the Minnesota shooter, the trans-identified lunatic who shot children in a Catholic school and wanted to kill Donald Trump? Yeah, it's Trump who was almost killed by an assassin's bullet who is to blame for leftist violence, not these lefties losing.
I don't know if you saw any clips from the Sunday shows this morning, but all of the usual suspect idiot Democrat senators were all over the Sunday morning shows today saying that Trump hasn't brought the country together. Doing what they always do, which is taking any event of any kind anywhere and finding a way to shift the blame onto Donald Trump, because apparently it is his job to unite the country when leftists do terrible things to conservatives. To which I pose the question, why would I have any desire to find conciliation with people who want me dead and would be happy to dance on my grave?
I got nothing, dude. I got nothing. I've spent the last 5 years on YouTube trying my best to kind of tone down the narratives on both sides. I've been willing to discuss both sides. Now, that being said, I only found one side that was actually willing to engage honestly. The other side basically is waiting for you to misstate something so they can clip it and use it as a weapon against you.
And it is difficult to unite the country, quote unquote, when one side is operating that way and the other side is not. It really can't be done. It's a disingenuous argument. It is complete horseshit. And the people who are trafficking in it, they know it's disingenuous horseshit, but they do it anyway because it's the only thing they know how to do.
He insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
That's it right there.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
President Donald Trump has
the greatest hits of the sensitive, tolerant left, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it.
And there it is.
Yeah, those are the people who say it's our fault that we're not uniting the country.
You want to see something funny?
Yeah.
It'll take 2 seconds. Me finding out the Senate quietly voted to block the release of the Epstein files 3 hours after the Charlie Kirk incident. Yep, that checks out. Yeah, Abe, you heard John Wilkes Booth. That's the comparison we're living with nowadays. Oh, my bad.
Yeah, he was actually mentioned twice.
Yeah.
By 2 sensitive, tolerant leftists.
Yes, very sensitive, very empathic people. And
they just want to find common ground with the people they want to kill.
Damn it, I love Johnny Depp too much, and I can't.
Murder of Charlie Kirk, a dark moment for America.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace.
And the president noted the spate of deadly political violence from the left. He called such acts, including the assassination of Charlie Kirk, as acts of domestic terrorism.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others. Radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come.
Telling me.
There's 5 feminizing food.
We're done. Sky News Australia is fantastic. They do such great work. They are the best American news network that's not even an American news network. They are absolutely invaluable.
They're certainly entertaining as hell. If you don't like anything else, they're entertaining as hell.
Rita Panahi is an absolute all-star. I love
Total savage. I love it. She's savage. I mean, I love her clips. I love everything I see about her.
Oh, I know, because what she says is, in the accent she says it in, makes it even better.
Right. And then if something goes wrong, she says, "No."
And she's uniquely positioned to push back against a lot of this stuff, because she actually came to Australia as a refugee in 1980 after the Iranian Revolution. So when radical Islamists try to give her shit, she ain't having none of that.
So, and I've been meaning to get into this through the whole show, but people ask, I was asked several times today on different panels, why does it matter? Why do you care? Why does the murder of an individual on college campus thousands of miles away have a direct effect on me? Why do you care, right? And I understand the question. I get it. And it took me a minute to collate a reason to make it make sense in my head. And the reason is Charlie Kirk was a public figure. He voluntarily placed himself in public saying things that was clearly unpopular in certain circles. You and I have done exactly the same thing. We are here in a public space, having a public conversation and interacting with the chat and going over the different things that happen in the news on a weekly basis. And we have some less than popular opinions. The mainstream media won't touch with a 10-foot pole half the stuff that we get in on. We say things that they couldn't possibly get away with and keep their jobs. So, I mean, we do have a certain amount of latitude based off of that, but that's no sort of gimme. The reason it matters,
if people like us aren't willing to talk about the things you're not supposed to talk about, then there's no point in people like us existing, I would submit.
Well, that's the point I'm getting to. The reason it matters is the only difference between Charlie Kirk and you and me is he was reaching millions of people. He was going into literal public spaces and putting himself on the line physically in places that are enemy territory. I mean, I think we can both agree a college campus is about the worst place to go and try to do that type of a sit down.
That young man had absolutely boundless reserves of moral courage, and I will always admire him for it. Even though it resulted in him meeting his end, I don't admire him for it any less.
But either one of us could end up in exactly the same situation by making some statement about something political and some weird nut job out there deciding that that's too much, they've had enough, and they come to your house or to my house or wait until you go to the grocery store. Wait until you're out with your kids.
If you are a person who puts your face on camera and says things that some people don't like, especially things that crazed radical leftists don't like, then it is bound to happen that you will receive threats of harm or death from somebody
at least
somewhere. It's an absolute fait accompli that it's going to happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to you. There's nobody. I doubt if there's anybody anywhere who does what we do to whom it has not happened.
Right. And I would make the argument that probably happens on both sides. But the fact that we have voluntarily made ourselves public figures and that we stand on the squares that we stand on, that we defend the virtuosity, the rights of the American people to do the things that we do by doing the things that we do is not lost on the radical left. It's not necessarily speech that they have an issue with. It's the opposition. It's the fact that someone will sit and discuss rationally. One of the quotes, and I think I said this backstage, one of the quotes that I got from both of these weird radical bots that come through these chats that I was on panels with, right? One question was, you sit around in your right-wing echo chamber trying to rationalize and justify everything that you say and do. And I snapped, bro. I snapped. Sir, if you are not rationalizing the things that you say with logic and facts, then you, sir, are wrong. And if you can't justify the things you do with any sort of justification, you just refuse to do it, then you're wrong on its surface. You're already wrong.
you are the absolute last person who should ever have that said to him, because I tell you all the time, you twist yourself into ridiculous pretzel shapes sometimes, trying to find both sides of a thing. So, how is that being in a right-wing echo chamber? I ask the boss.
I got nothing on this. I got nothing. Dude, I was in there. I had managed to take something that was relatively political, and it wasn't meant to be, but it kind of was, just by default of what was being discussed. And I went in with not a conscious intention of removing the politics, but to discuss the facts, the premises, the situation, the details, and ask the pertinent questions that need to be asked. When anyone,
like you said, the physical details of the incident. And there's no reason why that has to be political.
No narrative, no propaganda, nothing behind it. Simply asking what happened, what do we know, how much confidence do we have in this knowledge? Do we trust the sources we're getting it from? And
which aspects of it perhaps don't make a lot of sense.
Right. And one of the panels, the person bringing up all of the details that we were using was a liberal. He was a card carrying Democrat, bro. And he freaked out. He was like, Jesus, how can you even take that approach? But okay, fine, whatever. I fall back on the previous statement. If you are not rationalizing your thoughts, you're already wrong. And if you can't justify the things you do, you started wrong.
Yes. And if your only recourse when challenged is to scream abuse and hurl epithets, then you might be full of shit.
They both broke down to screaming slurs at me. From chat, like full caps, the F-bomb, hard R's, you name it, bro.
Oh yeah.
That's what it denigrated to in both cases. And they came in using almost identical verbiage.
Which is the weird part for me. And you see that all the way up and down the leftist media ecosystem, from the depths of YouTube all the way up to your network news programs. They are all singing from the same hymnal. They all begin using the same words and phrases at exactly the same time for exactly the same duration. So there obviously are clearinghouses of talking points that operate and disseminate. We just don't know where they are and who runs them. It would be interesting to find that out one day. I'm sure it could be found out.
Well, it's all a top-down show. I mean, clearly. If it wasn't, you wouldn't have every single mainstream media quoting exactly the same phrases on the same days. That's not
do they think nobody notices that?
That's not a byproduct of someone writing a clever line.
No, it sure as hell is not.
Right?
And that's the other remarkable, astounding aspect of it, is that the things they write are not even clever or incisive or thoughtful. They're things you can get from any third-rate internet troll.
With one exception. Alligator Alcatraz, that man needs a Pulitzer.
Oh, I'll give you another exception. Van Jones, who is a completely useless creature 99% of the time. He performed a valuable service for humanity when he coined the term "nothing burger" to describe the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. And the only reason he coined it and said it out loud was because he didn't know he was being recorded. But I will give him credit anyway, because that was a great coining, and I have gotten great use out of that term.
It's great. I love nothing burgers, man. They're some of my favorite food.
Freaking delicious. Just don't let Chuck Schumer cook them, or you'll get freaking E. coli.
Or that Tubin fellow. You never know what kind of secret sauce he's dropping on the burgers.
Hey now.
Zinger. I'm trying to
Scotty, I stole your line.
You got me, dude. All right, brother. We got about 1 minute left, so I'm gonna exit the way we've decided to do it, and so it comes down to this: whether you're speaking personally, privately, or publicly. If someone overhears you, there's a chance that you may have to deal with the consequences of your words. I pray and hope that it's never the situation that Charlie Kirk has ended up with. and that you never have to face that. But in that field, I am Charlie Kirk.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us on what was a difficult night, and it's been a difficult week, but I think a lot of useful things were said here, and that's sometimes the best we can do is to say useful, thoughtful things to each other. If you are religiously inclined, I would encourage you to continue praying for Mrs. Kirk and the children, and also for his parents, because they are suffering too. And if you're not religiously inclined, then kind thoughts and sympathies work just as well. Have a great week. Hug the people you love. We will see you back here next Sunday. Get off my lawn. I am Charlie Kirk.